All right, everybody, welcome back. We are ready to jump into another deep dive.
Yeah,
This time we're going deep on leadership
absolutely.
with Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last.
That's a good one.
So if you haven't read this one, this is going to be a great overview, I think, of some of the concepts.
Definitely.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Really about how to create that culture of trust and safety, where people feel empowered to do their best work
Yeah.
and to thrive and innovate and all that good stuff.
I think one of the things that really stood out to me reading this book
Yeah.
is how Sinek kind of throws out this traditional view of leadership that's all about like the alpha, the top dog.
Right, the command and control.
Exactly. And he says, it's not about that. It's not about personal gain. It's about responsibility.
Yeah.
It's about taking on the responsibility to create a space where everyone feels safe.
That's so interesting because I feel like there is this, I don't know, almost like a cultural narrative.
Yeah.
That to be a leader, you have to be, strong and assertive and even maybe a little bit like intimidating.
Right. Like you have to be the loudest voice in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's saying, no, it's actually the opposite.
The opposite.
It's about creating that space where other people can rise.
Exactly. And he used this metaphor of the circle of safety.
Yes. The circle of safety, which I love.
Such a powerful idea.
But it's like, what does that even mean? It sounds kind of like we're building a moat around the office or something.
Right. Not quite a fortress, but
It's quite a fortress.
it's more like
like a psychological safety net.
Yeah. Yeah. Think of it as like an invisible shield almost.
Okay.
And within that circle, team members, they feel protected. They know they can take risks. They can voice their opinions.
Yeah.
They can even screw up.
Yeah.
And they won't be punished or humiliated for it.
And that's huge because I think so much of the time, especially in like a fast-paced work environment,
Absolutely.
you're afraid to make a mistake.
You're afraid to speak up.
You're afraid to say, hey, I have a different idea because you don't want to rock the boat.
Right. You don't want to look stupid.
Exactly.
And that stifles creativity. That stifles innovation.
Absolutely. Because then you're only getting like the same ideas from the same people over and over again.
Exactly. And Sinek, he gives this great example in the book about a Navy captain.
Oh, yeah. Captain Abershoff.
Captain D. Michael Abershoff. He took command of the ship, the USS Benfold. And when he got there, morale was in the dumps.
Yeah, they were like the worst performing ship in the Navy.
The worst. And he turned it all around
He did.
by creating a circle of safety.
So how did he do that? Like, what were the specific things he did?
Well, he started by actually listening to his crew.
Oh, that's radical.
I know, right? Like
You're
actually listening to the people who are doing the work.
Who are on the front lines every day.
Exactly. He empowered them to make decisions.
Wow.
He recognized their individual contributions, and it worked.
It's amazing how simple it sounds.
I know, right?
But it's obviously not that easy because if it was, everyone would be doing it.
Right. But it starts with a shift in mindset. From giving orders to empowering your team.
Exactly. And you know what else I thought was fascinating?
What's that?
This whole thing about the biology of leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how did our brains even get involved in all of this?
Well, it turns out that, we have these chemicals in our brains like endorphins and dopamine, and they give us this feeling of satisfaction when we achieve something individually.
Like when we hit our goals,
Exactly.
get that promotion.
You get that bonus, you're feeling good.
You're like, yes, I did it.
Exactly. But then you have these other chemicals like serotonin and oxytocin.
Right.
And they're released when we feel a sense of belonging,
Okay.
when we feel trust and connection with others.
So it's like we're wired for both individual achievement
Yes,
and collaboration.
absolutely.
So then, like, as a leader, how do you find that balance?
Right. Because you don't want to create a culture of like cutthroat competition. No.
Where everyone's just out for themselves.
Everyone's trying to get to the top and step on everyone else along the way.
You got it. And that's actually what Sinek calls a selfish culture.
Ah, yes, right.
And he warns against that.
Yeah, because it's not sustainable in the long run.
It's not. It erodes trust.
Mm-hmm.
It ultimately harms the entire organization.
And I think we've probably all worked in places like that at some point.
Oh, I'm sure.
Where it's just like everyone's looking out for themselves and you don't feel safe.
You don't feel safe. You don't feel supported.
You don't feel like you can trust anyone.
Exactly.
And it's exhausting.
It's soul-crushing.
It is. So how do you fix that? Like if you're in a leadership position and you've inherited this
It's a tough one.
selfish culture.
It's a tough one. But Sinek suggests starting with small things,
Okay.
like just having regular check-ins with your team members,
Just talking to people,
talking to them like human beings.
finding out what they need, what their challenges are. Exactly. Actively listening to their concerns, offering support, and recognizing their efforts.
It's so simple, but I think sometimes we just forget to do the basics.
It's true. We get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget about the human element.
And that's where I think this whole idea of long-term vision versus short-term gains comes in.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in those quarterly targets.
Absolutely. Hitting those numbers.
Taking those profits.
And, Sinek warns against this.
He does.
He says that leaders who are just focused on the bottom line, they end up sacrificing the long-term health and sustainability of your organizations.
Right. And they also lose the trust and loyalty of their employees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because who wants to work for a company that only cares about profits?
Right. We want to feel like we're part of something bigger.
Exactly. We want to feel like our work has meaning.
Yeah, we want to feel like we're making a difference.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think this whole idea of leaders eat last comes full circle.
Yes, the central metaphor.
The central metaphor. But I got to be honest, the first time I heard that phrase, I was kind of like, huh.
It's a little jarring.
It is. It makes you think of like, caveman or something.
Right, like survival of the fittest.
But it's actually not about that at all.
No, it's about service.
Okay.
It's about putting the needs of others before your own.
So explain this a little bit more. Like, where does this idea come from?
So Sinek uses the example of military leaders.
Okay.
Especially in combat situations.
High stakes.
Very high stakes. And there's this tradition where the officers, they make sure that their troops are fed and taken care of before they even think about eating themselves.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's a powerful symbol of putting the team first.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we can all learn from.
Absolutely.
Whether we're leading a team at work or a family at home or even just a group of friends.
It's about that mindset of service.
Yeah.
Of putting the needs of others before your own.
And I think it takes courage to lead like that.
Oh, it absolutely does.
Because it's easy to say, oh yeah, I put my team first.
Right.
But when you're faced with tough decisions, when you have to make sacrifices,
when you have to stand up for what's right, even when it's unpopular,
that's when it really counts.
that's when true leadership shines through.
Yeah. So Leaders Eat Last is more than just a book title.
It's a philosophy.
It's a way of life.
It's a call to action for all of us.
To be the kind of leaders who inspire trust,
loyalty,
and commitment.
And who ultimately make the world a better place.
I love that.
By putting others first.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final question.
Okay.
How can you embody the Leaders Eat Last philosophy in your own life?
That's a good question.
It is. It's something to think about.
Definitely.
And until next time, remember, leadership is not a rank.
It's a responsibility.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye.